Welcome back, guys, to the comics class. And today, we are covering a personal favorite of mine, because today we'll be taking a look at the very first issue of the Uncanny X-Men. Now, I grew up in the 1990s, and the early to mid-90s was the era of the X-Men. They were huge. Everybody loved the X-Men. It didn't matter if you read comics or not. If you grew up during the 80s or 90s, you at the very least knew who they were. But let's take a look at the origins of the X-Men and see why they became such a mega success. The X-Men were created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, first appeared in the Uncanny X-Men #1 in 1963. When Stan Lee sat down to come up with some ideas for new characters, he felt that he was running out of original ideas for how his characters gained their superpowers. So in an interview, he said that he just took the lazy way out and said that they were just born with their abilities. So the superheroes would all be mutants. And the idea he pitched to his editor was a new comic called The Mutants. But his editor told him that kids wouldn't know what mutant means. So he changed the name to the X-Men. And keep in mind, this is during the 1960s. The civil rights movement was going on, so Lee wanted to try to connect the X-Men with the civil rights movement. And he had the mutants being hated by humanity just because of the way they were born. And Lee says that the main objective was to show that bigotry is a terrible thing. And unlike characters like Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four, when the X-Men were first released, they did not have instant success. And for the most part, they fell into becoming background heroes. Although the X-Men would continue releasing new issues every month for about 7 years, which isn't that bad considering Hulk was canceled after just 6 issues. So getting into the first issue, if you're new to comics and you're just looking at the cover, you might notice that some of the most popular characters are missing from the team, like Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Wolverine. That's because that version of the team wasn't released until 1975 in Giant Size X-Men #1, which is really when the team started to gain popularity. Giant Size X-Men was created by Len Wein, who then gave up the helm as writer to a 24-year-old Chris Claremont. No one thought anything would come of the new version of the X-Men, which is why the unexperienced Claremont was given the task as writer. However, the team became hugely popular, and the large success that Claremont had is due to how he approached comics. He made the focus on creating engaging characters that the reader actually cared about, instead of creating an overly exciting story. And Claremont continued to be the writer for the X-Men for the next 17 years. Getting into issue #1. It opens with Professor Charles Xavier alone in his study, when he calls his students to class, and it's shown that he's doing this telepathically. His students come rushing to him, and that's when we're first introduced to Cyclops, Angel, Beast, and Iceman, who is strangely sliding down a pole. You may notice that Beast is missing his iconic blue fur, and this is because he doesn't actually get the blue fur until 1972. But then the comic tries to show some of the personalities of the students. Cyclops is getting the professor comfortable, showing that he's a bit of a suck-up, which is very true. Iceman is freezing Beast's arm, and he'll kind of be portrayed as the class clown. Beast is the tough guy, and Angel is a bit overconfident, but a nice guy. So Professor X starts having the group test their powers. He has Beast jumping through what is basically an obstacle course of hoops, and then trying to balance. Angel is going through some flying drills, shows him flying through a giant fan, and 2 hammers that smash into each other, and this seems extremely dangerous and reckless to be having a teenager attempt. Iceman, who hasn't been tested yet, gets bored and makes himself look like a snowman, so I guess he's been carrying around a carrot and some loose buttons the whole time. But Beast does not appreciate Iceman's humor, and throws a bowling ball at him, which I also don't know where he got a bowling ball from. But Iceman is able to easily evade the bowling ball, and him dodging this bowling ball apparently is Iceman's only test, while Angel had to fly through some blades of death. But it is then Cyclops' turn to be tested, which Professor Xavier asks him to pretend that Iceman and Beast are enemies, and has Cyclops attack the 2 of them, which makes Xavier seem kind of like a terrible person. But Cyclops does it happily, blasts Beast with some energy beams, basically a sucker punch that sends him flying. Then he begins to attack Iceman, who makes an ice cube of protection, but Cyclops is able to break through that, so Professor tells them that he's got some big news, which he tells them in an extremely creepy way, that a new student will be joining them, a most attractive young lady. The team then run to the window just as a new student is arriving, and most of them immediately start making some inappropriate comments about her looks. She comes into the school and is greeted by the professor, and she immediately has some questions about the school, which makes the reader believe that she has been forced to go to the school by Professor Xavier, because she was told by him not to tell anyone about what school she's going to other than her parents. And then she demands to know what kind of school this even is. Xavier tells her this is a school for mutants, like herself, and that he would like her to join the X-Men, and the X stands for Extra Powers. And this is when it's shown what the girl's name is, which of course is Jean Grey. And Professor Xavier's creepiness for Jean Grey is something that will be looked at again almost 30 years later, when it's revealed during the Onslaught story that he's actually in love with Jean Grey. But Marvel, for the most part, tries to ignore that part of the story. And the professor gives her the name of Marvel Girl, which, yes, Marvel Girl was Jean Grey's superhero name for some time. but it didn't really stick once the team was brought back by Claremont, and especially after she became the Phoenix. Jean then displays what powers she has by moving a chair, showing that she has the power of telekinesis. We don't even learn that she has the power to read minds in this issue at all. But the professor gives a little background on the school and himself. He explains that his parents worked on the first A-bomb project, which kind of alludes that he may have gotten his mutant gene from being around his parents and so much radiation, and that he might also be the first mutant. And when he was young, people feared him and realized that mutants weren't ready to be accepted by humanity. So that's why he built a school for mutants to learn to control their powers and help benefit mankind. Now, a lot of this background will be changed. Professor Xavier's first encounter with a mutant was when he battled the Shadow King, which he knew was a much older being than himself. So he's definitely not the first mutant. And that is basically why he started the school, was to train other mutants to fight against other evil mutants like the Shadow King. And he kind of does allude to this in just a minute. All the boys then begin hitting on Jean until she uses her powers to pick up Beast and toss him, which she apologizes for, but Professor X says not to, because their training has to be rough. And this is because they might have to fight mutants that have evil intentions and want to take over the Earth. And this is when we're first introduced to Magneto, who's planning an attack on a military base near Cape Citadel. Magneto believes that humans no longer deserve to be the dominant race, and he plans on making humans bow to all mutants, or as Magneto likes to call mutants, Homo Superior. Magneto then demonstrates his powers by taking down a military test missile. And the next day, Magneto uses his powers to write a message over the military base by spelling out, "Surrender the base or I'll take it by force." And even gives a nice little cursive signature there. And it shows Magneto being very happy with his display of power, saying that he now has the element of surprise, which makes me think that Magneto doesn't know the meaning of the element of surprise, because writing a giant letter in the sky kind of takes away that surprise factor. But Magneto then decides to enter the base himself. And as he's walking through the base, he's able to immediately disarm military personnel who attempts to attack, until he gets to the officer in command. Magneto tells the general that he is taking over the base, and of course the general attempts to fight off Magneto, but he creates a magnetic fence around him. The story then jumps back to Xavier's school, where again all the guys are perving out on Jean until Xavier communicates with them mentally and calls a meeting. When the team assembles, Xavier tells them that he believes an evil mutant has attacked Cape Citadel and wants to send the X-Men on their first mission to defeat him. The team then gets dressed, jumps in Xavier's Rolls Royce, and is driven to an airport, where they are flown to Cape Citadel with Xavier controlling the plane remotely. When the X-Men arrive at the base, they tell the guards that they'd like to go in, which the guards are reluctant, but they end up allowing them. But the team goes in, showing their powers to the soldiers as they rush in, until they are met by a magnetic shield created by Magneto, and Cyclops uses his beams to blast through the shield. And having his shield broken startles Magneto, but he begins to prepare to battle the team, knowing that they must be mutants like himself. And when Magneto sees the team coming, he shoots 5 heat-seeking missiles at them, which all seem to only target Angel. And Angel, who is unable to outfly the missiles, is saved when Iceman slows them down by throwing ice grenades at them, which somehow disarm the missiles, and they drop to the ground. However, one missile is still targeting him, but Beast and Jean Grey are able to send the missile flying into the sea. Magneto is impressed by their skills, but that doesn't discourage him, and when Angel begins to attack, he simply covers him in metal. But Cyclops is able to blast him free. And when the team is all together, Magneto believes this is the best time to destroy them all at once, and he pushes a tank of rocket fuel at them. And for some reason, Magneto suddenly looks like he's gotten real thick. Unknowing to Magneto, Iceman was able to make an igloo shield to protect the team, and Magneto, thinking the team has been defeated, is surprised when Cyclops shoots through the rubble and blasts him with his beam. Magneto then takes flight, using magnetic repulsion, and blocks the X-Men with a force field, and is able to escape being captured, with Magneto kind of being defeated, but not really. The X-Men then tell the military they can return to their base, and the general thanks the group for their work. The issue ends with the X-Men flying home, and they are mentally congratulated by Professor X. And that wraps up the first issue of the Uncanny X-Men. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, make sure you slap that like button. Subscribe to see more videos like this. If you have any suggestions on comics we should cover next, make sure you leave that in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.